Hello, this is Sarah, the Stitchin Mommy, and I'm here for a stitch along with my recent start, the Dragon Ride by Teresa Wentzler. I started this for Stitch Mania Olympics stitch along. I'm going to stitch it for my son, and I bought this pattern on Patterns Online, so they didn't actually have a cover picture included in the pattern, so I just found an example of someone else's stitched work on the internet and printed that picture out so I like to have a picture of what it looks like to refer to. I think they maybe did different beading in the border because my beads they look like they have all gold or gold beads, but I have multicolored beads, which is what's called for in the pattern. So that'll be a little different than this picture, but the pattern is really easy to read. It's very large print, which is really nice, and especially with all the fractionals that are in here, it makes it really easy to read. Hopefully that's not too bright. With the Patterns Online pattern, I did have to download a special pattern viewer for it, because it didn't have, it was not a PDF, it was a special file. So you do need to download a special viewer, but they provide the link for the viewer and it's free. And then you just print it out from there. So I have a little bit of my string left, so I'm just going to get started on that, and then I'll probably do another length for you to show you just the blended thread process. This is 28 count Evenweave in the color light blue by MCG Textiles, and I'm actually really loving it. It's, as I said, MCG Textiles, which historically speaking their Evenweave is not so even. However, this is perfectly even. It's 28 by 28 in both directions, and it's it feels a lot like Monaco. It's very even, it's very smooth and thick, what do you call it? Thick strands. So I really like it. I'm actually really happy I decided to go with this route, even though it was a lot cheaper than fabrics I could have bought online. I often go the cheap route and end up being like, it's good enough. But this time it's like, yeah, I'm really happy with that decision. So this was found at Hobby Lobby, and it's still there. They seem to have taken away any Charles Craft stuff they have, and everything they have is MCG Textiles now. But this light blue Evenweave by MCG Textiles is actually decent. I will vouch for it. At least the one I got was decent. So I'm actually tempted to go get more, because I think this would be a nice background for a lot of different patterns. So this pattern has a lot of fractionals. As you have probably heard, Teresa Wentzler is known for fractional stitches. This pattern also has a lot of blended threads. In fact, I haven't confirmed this because I'm not super far into the pattern yet, but I think every symbol that's 2/2 is blended. I'm pretty sure. And the only solid color symbols are in the 1/1 area, which she has a separate chart for to stitch the rider 1/1. So let that be a warning. If you do not like blended threads, this would not be the pattern for you. I don't mind blended threads. A lot of my Golden Kite patterns have blended threads. Doesn't really bother me. One thing I do do a little differently sometimes with blended threads, because it's what in the world? Oh, I had a timer. One thing that's with a solid color on your needle, if I feel like finishing this certain section, I'll just wrap it back on my bobbin and go on my merry way. For example, when I was stitching this before, I was working on the wings. I worked on this wing to start with. The center was right around here somewhere, and I counted up so I could do this from the top down. So I started here, went down here, and I have a little bit left on my thread, on my needle. I mean, I had a little bit of thread left on my needle. If I had been using a solid color, I would have just probably wound it back on the bobbin and found the next color and just kept working right here. But because it was blended, I didn't want to have to go separate the strands, put them back separately on 2 different bobbins. So I did a little bit over here, and then I figured, well, I'd rather just do this whole section, and then I ended up doing the whole wing, and again had more thread left, so did some of his face also. So it was kind of like just a matter of using up the thread and then using up the section, and whereas I may have stopped that color earlier if it wasn't blended. So there's certain decisions that I make differently based on the fact that it is a blended thread. But other than that, it's not too bad. I am highlighting this pattern. I'm not going to try not to show you too much of the pattern, but I am highlighting it as I go, because I don't want to completely screw it all up. There's so many fractionals, and the way she charts, there's like, as you can see, it's like scattered stitches of the colors, so it could be easy to get off if you're not keeping track. So I'll stop and highlight periodically. And again, because I'm stitching in hand, I like to run things underneath if I'm going to travel a little bit, because I want to keep the tension consistent. So this is the top of one of his wings, and it's like a fluffy hair part or something. So just, I don't know, it's on my mind right now because this morning, just something I wanted to talk about, I guess, which I'm kind of sad about, but I was packaging an Etsy sale I had to the UK this morning, and I hadn't sold a physical kit to overseas since the postal hikes at the end of January. And if you have been shipping internationally since then, you will know what I'm about to get at. But I sold a few digital things since January, but not anything physical. So this was kind of a shock. And I knew somebody had said they were doing things differently, but I hadn't ever gone in and looked it up, which is bad of me, I guess. I should have done that. So apparently, what I have been doing is my kits and handkerchiefs and the different things I sell in my Etsy shop, everything can be shipped with a large envelope, in a large envelope, and it's thin and smooth, so I get away with large envelope prices and no customs forms, which is great for all of you who want to buy something, because then you have less shipping cost, and it's faster because it's not having to go through customs. So it was really great for everybody involved. Apparently the post office decided they didn't want to do it that way anymore, and now I can no longer ship a large envelope with goods inside. I think if it was containing only papers, like only documents, you could still ship a large envelope with, regular international letter prices or something. But since I'm shipping items, and I have to either spend $35 on priority mail international or go to international package prices, which are like $13. I had been getting away with like $5, so it's worse than it could be worse, but it's worse than it was. So it's really disappointing, because I was happy that I had that way to offer, cheaper shipping, and people didn't get their stuff stuck in customs. So I'm really sad I can't do that anymore. So I had to go through and update all my Etsy listings to reflect the new prices, which is kind of a bummer. So I may be receiving fewer international physical sales. PDFs clearly are still free shipping, which is always the case. But yeah, that's kind of a bummer. I wish the post office had not done that, but what are you gonna do? At least it still let me print it out on print a label from Etsy and pay for it through there so that I could just mail it from my home rather than having to go down to the post office. So that's at least still good. Okay, what I just did, if you didn't notice, is I have my 2 bobbins here, and I just took one string off of each one, which I happen to have a single strand of each one already, like ready to go on there, because I've been using these, and these are a different length because I didn't used to measure my strings, and I have been doing that lately. So these were not the right, these are probably around 24-inch lengths. I used to just eyeball it and it was good, but it is kind of nice to have them all consistent, because then if I'm doing blends and different things, they'll match up a lot nicer. So what I've been doing lately is I have a little 6-inch ruler that I stole from my kids, and I've been wrapping the floss around it. Let's see. Here we go. This one is a brand new length, so I'll go ahead and show you right now. Just cut a new one for you. I put it at the top, and then I wrap it around it 1, 2, 3, 4, which will get 24 lengths, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, which is another 24 inches, because I want it to be, since I use my master floss for every project, this length could end up being used on something where I want to do the loop method. So I want it twice as long as I want to use it for stitching. I'll usually use the 24-inch length for stitching. So what I would do is, for the loop method, I would pull out one from this 48-inch length 6-stranded piece. And then for the loop method, I would, put the ends together and thread my needle with the ends, and then I'd have my loop on the other side. Where is it? There it is. In order to do the loop method. Because I'm going to do, because I'm going to use this most likely for another length of this blended thread, I'll go ahead and cut it, and then I can have 2 24-inch lengths ready to blend with a 24-inch length from my other bobbin of the other color. So that's how I would do that. And it's ready to go next time I need it. I had to serge this fabric because I was using it straight out of the package for a while, and it turned out to be very shreddy, like it was falling apart. So it's nice to work with, but it was fraying a lot on the edges. So you'll definitely want to serge it or zigzag it or do something like that on the edges to make sure that it doesn't completely waste away while you're working on it. So I'm working more of my 2/2 on the dragon. Oh yeah, today in the Olympics challenge is mascots. Today is February 12th, I believe, and it's mascots, so stitch on anything with an animal. So I wanted another day to work on this, and a dragon is technically an animal. And so that's what I'm working on today. And I couldn't wait to get back to this. I worked on this on day 1 on the 9th and had so much fun. I didn't want to put it down because it's just, the colors are going to really pop on this fabric, and it's been stitching up so nicely and so smoothly. The fractionals are a joy. I can't wait to get to some back stitching. The next day I have this will be for the metallics and beads day in the challenge. So the border starts right here, touching this. The wing actually overlaps it by 1 square. So I'm going to do the dragon today, and then when I do there's beads in the border only, so I'm going to work on the border and some of those beads on whatever day the metals challenge is. I don't remember what day that is. I'll do some of the cross stitching in the border, and then I'll add the beads so I know where the beads go. So that'll be what I'll do on that day, and that'll be pretty fun to get some of the border done. And I may end up doing like a chunk of the border, you know, whenever this comes out for a proper 5-day rotation, I could do a chunk of the border and some of the dragon, just so that I don't leave all of the border till the end, or have to do it all at the beginning. I mean, that's no fun. So I may do some of both every time I pick this up again. And speaking of my rotation, I have kind of decided on a new plan for my projects, and I can maybe go into it a little bit more later, more specifically when I have things to show you in my next update video. But I have been doing 6 5-day rotations every month when it's not the Olympics challenge, and that's actually been working really well for me. I really like having that many days, and if for some reason I reach a good stopping point before the 5 days is over, I'll just stop and work on my diamond painting, or, you know, do something else, whatever, you know, like, so it's been fun to just have that chunk dedicated to this, that one project. I noticed working on these 1-day things, 1-day challenges, it's been a little bit weird. My style of stitching changes a little bit, knowing that I'm not going to have another day to work on it. So I do like to have several days in a row, like, dedicated to something. So in general, I want to keep doing that. So far, what I had been doing is 2 full coverage projects every month. And I hope this isn't too bright. Seriously, I'm like talking away and maybe it's not even showing up for you guys. I hope it is. Oh well. If it's not, I'll just scrap the video. What I have been doing with my plans is I have 2 full coverage pieces every month. One of them for Full Coverage Fanatics monthly sell, and the other one for Full Coverage Fanatics quarterly sell. And then I have my monthly piece, which this year is the Frosted Pumpkin Storytime Sampler, which I want to work on every month. And then I have the a Fancy Lady, and I have 2 regular pieces, like non-full coverage pieces, in addition to my Fancy Lady. And that made up the 6 different rotations per month. However, whenever I like think about all my full coverage pieces that I'm not currently working on, I get really sad that I won't touch them at all until next year, and that I have so many projects that I won't be able to touch all of them every year, like ever, probably. And that's just kind of depressing. So for one, I need to kind of cut back on how many I have. So I decided I wanted to try like a focus piece, and some way of getting all my full coverages worked on. So what I'm going to do now is I'll still have my monthly and quarterly full coverage choices, and this is all starting in March after the Olympics. I'm going to continue to do my February plans the way I told you in my last update video. This will all start in March. I'm going to stick with my monthly and quarterly choices, but I'm going to add another full coverage chunk, which will take away one of the regular piece chunks, and that chunk will be a priority piece. So my full coverage, I'm going to choose a full coverage piece to focus on once every month, and most likely I'll be choosing either smaller pieces or pieces I want to make for somebody else or for my wall at home, so that those things can be chipped away at faster. So in order to also kind of hopefully knock out some of the Year of Whips ones, I have my first focus piece is going to be the furry animals freebie that I have started, because that's one of the ones I was hoping to finish for Year of Whips. And when that one's done, then I'll work on my End of Green Gables as my focus piece, because then that's another one I wanted to finish in 2018. So after that, I think I have my Knitting Woman and then my Iris, because those are ones I want to work on for other people. And then I have Waterfall and Yosemite and Grapes, because those are the ones that I want to make for my house for decorating. So that's kind of my plan. And then I can, I'll still have a Fancy Lady every month, but I'm going to rotate back and forth between a priority piece and a non-priority piece. So that, like, for instance, this year I want to finish Snow Queen. So one month I'll work on Snow Queen, the other month I'll work on whichever one I want to choose that month, and the following month I'll work on Snow Queen again. So she'll hopefully have enough time to get finished, and whenever she's done, I'll pick another piece to be my focus piece, so that the next one has a chance to get done in a reasonable amount of time also. And I decided to do that for my regular non-full coverage pieces also. So my one slot for regular, a non-full coverage piece every month, I'll still have a slot for my monthly piece, my Storytime Sampler, but then I'll have the other non-full coverage spot, which will now rotate between a priority piece and a fun piece. So my priority piece will probably be, I might alternate the priority piece between an old whip and a small whip, so that I can work on, like, finishing up some of those old ones, like Midsummer Roses, and also little ones that I want to just knock out. But then on the alternate weeks, I can work on the alternate months, I can work on things like Twisted Band Sampler or my Shadow Lane, things that I'm not necessarily expecting to finish this year, but that I would like to work on because they're so much fun. So I think that's going to work out really well. The way I organized it, I plotted in all my full coverage pieces. I gotta fix my roll. I inputted all my full coverage pieces into that system, and I will actually be able to touch every single full coverage piece I have this year at least once, and the priority pieces will get more. And if they're finished quicker than the amount of weeks I've given them, then I may be able to touch some of my other fun ones more often too. And it even lets me factor in a new start, because I have a mini Princess of the Sea that I bought recently for my daughter, that I want to make for her, or that I want to make for me because it reminds me of her. And that one I have plugged into May, so that I'll have another Mania start. So I think I have like 4 starts in May, which will probably be the extent of my Stitch Mania this year. It's just 4 new starts. I'm going to start Quick Stitch Anne of Green Gables and Mini Princess of the Sea, which are both Hades, and then Stargazer, which is my Mirabilia. And I think Touchdown, the football one that I'm making for my other son, which I think I might actually go and buy more of this fabric to stitch Touchdown on, because I think that'll look really good on this fabric too. So I'm going to go get some more of that next time I have a chance to go over to Hobby Lobby and use my coupon and get it for another like $3 or something. So that's happening. So I'll be starting those 4 in May. And I feel like I'm talking an awful lot and not really explaining what I'm doing, but I'm not really doing anything too exciting. I'm just stitching. There are a lot of fractionals in here, which later will get, you know, they'll be like the little fractional on this side, then there'll be another color on the other side, and then the back stitch will complete the rest of the square, as I talked about in my Snow Queen video. Only this one, it is a little bit easier to complete the fractionals because the Evenweave means you don't have to split the Aida. And she actually recommends on the pattern it says on the pattern this pattern is not suitable for Aida, this Teresa Wentzler one, because of the 1/1 stitching on the writer. He is charted in 1/1. His, you know, face, hair, clothes, everything is charted 1/1. So because of that, that would be very difficult to do on Aida. I think you probably could, but I would not recommend it. That'd be a little bit of a hair splitting nightmare, I think. But I think it would be possible, just a whole lot of Aida splitting, I guess. I don't know that now I'm curious. Now I want to try it. Ha! Let's try stitching 1/1 size on Aida.